Hello, everyone. Welcome in another interview. My name is Suzinana. I'm certified breathwork facilitator, an educator, and mentor in the field of womb healing and awakening. And my today's special guest is Ellyne Skove. She's a founder of Brightside Babies, Bright Start Babies. She's a New York state licensed movement therapist and nationally certified counselor and polarity therapist. Welcome, Ellyne. Welcome in this interview.
Maiden. If everyone's check.
Yeah,
Hello,
yeah.
everybody.
Beautiful, beautiful, nice bridge. Because I just wanted to say that with Ellyne, we met a few weeks ago in Czech Republic on the conference about prenatal trauma. I attend your workshop about bonding, and the way you shared this work and like in general, like your presence and you as a human being, you really called me and touched me. And I just felt already in Czech Republic, wow, I would love to make an interview with you. And so thank you for taking a time. And yeah, thank you for being in this interview.
It's really an honor and a pleasure. And I was so happy to meet you at the conference as well. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. We would have so many topics to speak about as me and Ellyne, we shared, similar interests. But the topic for today's interview will be the conception and the prenatal bonding. And let's see where this will take us. But yeah, this is the direction that we will be, or these are the topics that we will be talking about today. Ellyne, I read your curriculum, or I read about you, about your work, and your curriculum, it's quite big, it's quite diverse. And I would really love to ask you as the first question, what brought you even into the field of the polarity therapies, working with the babies, working with the people who are about to go through conscious conception? What called you, or what brought you into this field of work?
Yeah. I've always had my fingers in many different places that it all seems like it makes sense to me. I'm not sure other people get that, but to me, there's many, many things that come together in terms of working with humans. And I started out as a dance movement therapist and creative arts therapist working with people with disabilities, emotional disabilities, academic disabilities, things like ADHD, Tourette's, dyslexia, dysgraphia, and I was doing that, and simultaneously I had come to New York, which I never wanted to live in New York, by the way. I didn't grow up in a city. So to come here, I had to have a strong motivation, which I think almost anybody who's going to come to a city like this needs to have a reason. I had met someone named Nancy Topf at a summer workshop in the countryside in the mountains of Vermont. And she was working with a movement practice that she had invented that it was called dynamic anatomy. And it was really using developmental movement patterns from in utero to standing and walking, which really tracks the development of the spine as well as the brain. And I was completely hooked. I felt like all of a sudden, after years and years of being a dancer, I found the technique where my body, mind, and spirit really, really all connected, and just, it was like having roots and wings at the same time. So to feel grounded, but be able to soar and fly. And I found that I just kept studying this work, I moved to New York because that's where she was, to continue to study with her. Similarly, I was studying the work of body-mind centering, which has some similarities. And I started applying this to the children I was working with in special schools.
Mm-hmm.
And as yoga became more and more popular in the world, and I started to immerse myself in yoga as well, I could see that all of the basic yoga poses were borrowed from developmental movement patterns. And I thought that was really interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, just really fascinating to me. So at some point, after years and years of working with special needs children, I became very curious. I kind of operate like a little curious detective. Well, why are they like this? Not just, what can I do to help them be more comfortable in their body and learn more comfortably and just be more comfortable as a human, but why did this happen? So I would go into their charts and see that many of the children were adopted, or many of the children had a Pitocin induction, which I think in your country is considered artificial oxytocin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not to be confused with the real oxytocin that comes from our own bodies. So I ended up going back to graduate school for pre and perinatal psychology and studying somatic experiencing and really immersing myself in pre and perinatal psychology, where I became keenly sensitive to the influences of what's going on in conception,
Yeah.
even
Mm-hmm.
preconception, even
Mm-hmm.
preconception. I'll never forget this. The first paper I wrote when I was in the prenatal psychology program was about adoption, and I recalled reading something, it's not even related to adoption, but that people who work in lumber mills where they might be making plywood,
Mm-hmm.
those people, generally men, are exposed to formaldehyde in the process of making plywood, and formaldehyde affects the sperm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, we usually think of the mother really cleaning, the mother or the person who will be carrying the baby. That's the person who's going to really clean out the body and prepare. But this
Yeah.
information showed me that both people, whoever's going to provide sperm and egg, really, really benefit from looking at what's going on with their stress, with their food, with their intake of air, chemicals.
Yeah.
And then certainly getting exposed to people like Dr. Thomas Burney, the Tibetan practices of parenting, and a lot of books that have been written about communicating with the souls of babies.
Yeah.
A lot of the
Yeah.
books in front of me right now. That really points to what can happen in conception as well as the prenatal time, that are
Mm-hmm.
imprints that are going to be the absolute foundation of who we are as humans.
Yeah.
So it really takes away this idea that was very common in the past, that babies are just sort of a neutral blank blob
Yeah.
that we can influence. Now they're already highly attuned and sensitive and taking things in early on.
Mm.
So that's how, I mean, that's a long answer to how did I get into it, but I would say it's my curious mind and being exposed to the developmental movement patterns, which I'm absolutely nuts about. I just love, love, love working with developmental movement. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. And I really love the journey from, you know, that kind of that took you to a certain point of interest, but after like a kind of like not going like backwards, but like where this all starts, you know, like this is what I'm focusing on, this is what I'm treating, but like where it all starts, you know, and sometimes it can take us to the pregnancy, to the birth, to the pregnancy, to the womb, maybe even to the conception, and maybe even before the conception, you know, which I found really beautiful and fascinated, and to see your journey, you know, like coming there and back, actually. That's amazing. um you kind of answered my second question as I heard you, or as I was listening to you. Then my second question is like, what do you find the most fascinating about your work? What fascinates you the most?
Oh, that's a really juicy question. Um, okay, well, we all know now that I'm really passionate about developmental movement, and that I think that comes from growing up with a father who had 30 spine operations or procedures done.
Oh.
And I was just sort of immersed in this world of thinking about the spine, whether I wanted to or not. But I also feel very much that the spine connects us to heaven and earth. So there's that roots and wings thing again. So I just love that work. And I feel like how we are in the world is very much related to how our bodies are in the world. But bodies in the world are affected by all these other potential factors that relate to conception, gestation, birth. And I would say equally fascinating to me. It's not like one's more fascinating than the other. Equally fascinating to me has been doing the work of bonding repair.
Yeah.
There's a bonding disruption. And that it's like magic. It's like magic, except it's not magic.
Yeah.
It feels like magic. It's usually a mother, because she's been carrying the baby, feels a disconnect from her baby, and she knows it's not right. So if she comes to me, half the work is already done because she came to me and reached out. And so people who want to do this work are just so aware and ready to make a repair. And it's so instinctual. So I absolutely adore doing that. But this might be the next question too. What led me into starting to really think about prenatal bonding even more was that when I would finish a lot of these bonding repair sessions, I would often come away feeling like, oh, that could have been prevented. That could have been prevented. So really starting to focus in on the connections for conception and pregnancy.
Yeah. Beautiful. My next question is actually connected with the conception, and you touched that topic already as you were sharing with us what brought you to this field of work. My question is, where do you think that the conception starts? When it starts to happen? Is it really the point when the egg meet the sperm and you know, all the biology as we get taught, like this is the conception? Or you think that the conception process starts much earlier? what's your perception of what's, yeah, how do you see it?
Yeah, I think there's several different stages of that, perhaps.
Mm,
So the biological coming together of a sperm and egg would be one stage. And that's what I think we're taught in school, and certainly scientists and the medical profession would orient mostly to that.
mhm,
But I think probably in every language out there, there's some kind of phrase like, oh, I knew you when you were just a twinkle in your mom and dad's eyes,
mhm, mm,
right?
yeah,
What are we saying when we say that? Is that we saw some kind of twinkle or fiery spark between two people. And it's not a far stretch to realize they're probably going to be having sexual relations.
mhm,
And that there's such a beautiful connection that a baby will come from that, because who wouldn't want to come into a world of sparkly twinkle life? I mean,
yeah,
pretty good to me. Um, Life is hard enough, so if you get sparks and twinkles to enter into, I think a lot of souls out there would love that. Um, so that's another way to think about it, is it's already, there's something sparkly going on between two people. And then there's the idea that uh, when somebody starts to really feel into wanting a baby, that's a
mm,
conception also, because now it's coming through their thought process, their
yeah,
emotional process, their sense process, and that's a whole other kind of conception.
yeah, yeah. How do um, how do people who are about to, conceive, or they have the wish to conceive, how they can support the process of conception, how they can, let's say, get ready or tune into, the process of conception? Because I still see quite a few, let's say, women in the field of my work. Is like, I want to get pregnant. I do everything right. I do this, da 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 da. It's like a schedule. It's sometimes like a, preparing from the outside, or checking out all these like external stuffs. But sometimes I feel or see that the internal state is a little bit, or the internal landscape is a little bit forgotten. That there is some things maybe not fully aligned, let's say, for the soul to to come in. Where do you see, or how do you think, or maybe know already, that we can support the process of conception?
Interestingly, we just had a big talk through the Association of Pre and Perinatal Psychology and Health in just a few weeks ago. There's a professionals forum where we have a talk once a month. And I remember saying, gee, I wish there were conception doulas.
Mm, mm,
In my country, the United States, there's like a doula for everything except that. There's death doulas, there's abortion doulas, there's miscarriage doulas. Um, Obviously, there's birth doulas. But sure enough, someone in the group spoke up and said she was a doula, and she's starting to offer workshops on conception and really looking at the internal landscape and a sense of
mm.
readiness, and why do you want to have a baby?
Yeah.
Why? Is it an ego thing? Is it just a strong pull? And what kind of parents did you have? What kind of life did you have? And really looking to see if there's anything that might be holding a person back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's a wonderful book called Spirit Babies by
Yeah.
Walter Mackichin.
Yeah.
It's
Love
not an,
that book.
I just love that book too.
Yeah.
And I I remember reading a story. They're all people he's worked with. He's so for the audience here, he's a former attorney who was called to be a spirit clairvoyant of babies. And after all of his law training and hard work, he finally just answered the call and changed his career. It's so funny. I know two clairvoyants who were lawyers and then they became clairvoyants. It's so funny.
Wow. Wow.
Um, and he saw many people who were either getting pregnant and continually having miscarriages
Mm.
or doing everything right externally,
Yeah.
but found that the babies weren't feeling like they could come in and stay because the parents weren't truly ready. Something was holding them back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I feel like an inquiry into why you want a baby in the first place.
Yeah.
And then ask yourself some basic questions like, well, how's my womb health? If
Yeah.
you have a uterus, how's my womb health? This is not a question your gynecologist asks you. They just check you out and do a bunch of medical things, take a few tests, but they don't ask you, how do you feel
Yeah.
about your womb?
Mm-hmm.
And since I think the statistics are now 1 in 3 women are sexually abused, this is an important question to ask,
Yeah.
uh, because if you don't take care of that organ, it might say, I don't feel safe enough to hold a baby.
Yeah.
Um, so I feel like that's a very important question for people with a womb to ask themselves. And do I feel safe in my body? Do I feel safe to become a person who's going to be responsible for raising a human being and sticking with it?
Yeah.
Really sticking with it. I mean, this is a little bit of a tangent, but my oldest child is about to be 38. She's been going through some really intense experiences this year. And yesterday, no, 2 days ago, she was flying from the west coast of my country back here, which is, it was going to be like 11 hours of flying for her.
Mm-hmm.
And I insisted on driving 2 hours to the airport she was coming into to pick her up because I felt like she could really use her mother to just collapse into and be held and be hugged and tell her, you're amazing. I can't believe what you've been doing.
Mm.
Right. And like, I'm just saying, for some of us, it doesn't stop just once your child is, I don't know, 22 years old. It
Yeah.
continues. You're connected.
Yeah.
You know, why do you want to be connected to somebody for the entire rest of your life? How do you
Mm.
feel about
Yeah. And these are for sure fundamental question now to just to be asked, not just ones who will be carried the child, but also their partners, right? Because they are like a tree to, or there are two to, to conceive a child. It's like I always see that it's kind of agreement of three souls, and sometimes I see that they are usually a women or the women are the ones who are more kind of open to ask this question, or they think that like it's their responsibility, but it's still it needs to be two, to conceive a life, in case we are speaking about the natural conception, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, the idea of a conscious conception, it's really easy to jump to assisted reproductive practices for conscious conception, because you do have to be conscious if you're using a sperm donor or you're a single mom by choice. If you're going to use IVF, surrogate mother, there's so much consciousness going into that. And yet it can also still be unconscious in its own weird ways too.
Mm.
And then there's all kinds of baby spirits that just decide to pop in, even if two people have met and have had a few drinks together at a bar and end up going home together and having some
Yeah.
sex. And then boom, someone's pregnant. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
The soul wants to come in. Certainly in Buddhism, I could see my Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
There's a belief that babies choose their parents. And
Mm.
that's a really interesting thing to play with in one's mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's that too. I'm just pulling up this book right now. This is called The Tibetan Art of Parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really, really wonderful look at Tibetan culture and how they prepare to have babies. Lots of practices for both the man and the woman.
Mm-hmm.
Food, spirit, exercise, prayer, communicating with the baby, practices to communicate with the soul. I highly recommend this as inspiration.
Mm.
Really, really great book. Can you
Beautiful.
see where
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
backwards?
Yeah. Yeah. No. No. It's nice. You can see it. All good. Tibetan art of parenting. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah. This is just a wonderful, wonderful inquiry. And you can see, all the little tabs I have. I've used this book a lot. And it was really fun to see this book for sale when I went to Dharamsala, India, which is
Mm.
the capital of India.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But
That's
I want
yeah.
to also just mention something that feels really relevant to me. Years ago, a colleague of mine who ran a wonderful natural baby shop and had a classroom space in the back, she and her husband were using the sperm of a friend of theirs to make embryos because her husband was sterile.
Mm-hmm.
And that can happen. Men can have various illnesses as children that make them sterile.
Yeah.
So I know a few men that's happened to. So they had one child already, and they were ready to have another child, and they were taking frozen embryos. And my colleague saw me as I was leaving her classroom space and heading home, and she said, "Oh, Ellyne, we're going to have an embryo implanted tomorrow. Any suggestions?" And I was like, "Oh, let me put my stuff down." And I asked her if her husband was going to be there.
Yeah.
And she said, "No."
Mm.
And I was like, "Well, he's going to be the father. He's the
Yeah.
father. He's raising this child. And um, if you were having a natural conception, he'd certainly be there while you were having sex. And hopefully it would be really lovely, luscious intercourse. And you'd be very mindful about it if you were calling in a baby." And she said, "Oh, yeah." Like it made total sense to her, but she
Yeah.
hadn't thought about it. And this is a
Mm.
person who's very tuned in. I consider a very tuned in person, but she just hadn't thought about it. And so I said, "Well, honestly, I would like you and your husband to make a little altar for the soul of the baby, so the soul knows it's welcomed. Welcome
Mm,
is so important.
yeah.
And if you're able to have sex tonight, or if it's just a matter of holding hands and looking into each other's eyes, whatever form of like true intimacy between you. Because sometimes sex isn't even that intimate. Holding hands and looking into each other's eyes can be way more intimate.
Mm,
So just find a way to be very intimate with Greg. Oh, yep, that's his name. I can't say her name now, otherwise I'll be in trouble. Um, and now that I'm talking about it, I'm thinking, since they already had one child, it could have been lovely to just ask them to tell each other 3 things they think are so wonderful about the other as a parent.
mm-hmm.
And if you didn't have kids already, you could say, oh, I know you're going to be a great parent because of this or
Yeah.
that. And so that this baby's just feeling super welcomed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All want to feel welcomed.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah, I really, really love that. It's even that we choose the path of um, you know, of not natural conception for whatever reason. There are still practices, still still things that we can do to support the welcoming. That is not just this like artificial process somewhere, like in the hospital, or in some like a clinic, but it's we can exactly the conception. It's not just the sperm meeting the egg, it's all the alchemy around that, and
Right.
I really feel that it's so beautiful to bring this up and to like remind women and couples that that they can do these steps, because as I work with some women who are on their journey to conceiving a child, they sometimes tell me like, I don't want this option because it's just so artificial, or it's just I just want the natural way, and I bring the question like, and what if the child wants to come through the artificial, it's like exactly, if they want to come through like a one night stand, why they want to come in mid, to have you as a parents, if it would be like this or like that, what if this is a child's, or what if this like a spirit baby journey, but it's still
Yeah.
that we can as a parents get ready for it and create the field for the welcoming field for a new life.
Yes. Um, I'm listening to you, and I was also looking down. I'm very aware of that because I wanted to reference another really great book that's also very small. I love how these small books like Spirit Baby and the one I'm about to tell you, and even Conception Mandala, look, it's really
Mm.
skinny.
Yeah.
They can really like give you a lot of information. Um, Sobonfu Somé, who's she's from the continent of Africa, and she writes about her tribe called the Dagara.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the book is called Welcoming Spirit Home.
Mm.
Welcoming Spirit Home. Um, in that tribe, the second someone considers becoming a parent, the, the head of the tribe gives them a song. And they sing that song as soon as they learn it. They sing it while they're trying to conceive. They sing it during the pregnancy. The whole village learns the song, so they sing it when the mother goes into labor, and they sing it every year at the child's birthday. It really
Mm.
becomes like the welcoming song for a little spirit.
Yeah.
Um, in this tribe, and it's very touching. It's really, really touching. It also reminds me of another tribe I read about once, and I don't know where this tribe is from in the world. But it's a tribe that wears. Can you still hear me? Because you froze.
Yeah.
You
I can. Yeah, I can hear you.
Just checking. This tribe wears clothing with fringe, and anytime someone is mad at someone else, they tie a knot in the fringe.
Mm.
When a new baby is coming into the village, everyone in the village is responsible for finding a way to forgive and move on and untie those knots.
Wow.
It's so sophisticated. I mean, I don't know how big the village is, you know, but it's not like asking, you know, the entire city of Prague to untie.
And everyone now forgive yourself.
Right, that would be a tall order. But the village is so conscious of wanting to have positive energy to welcome a new child into their entire tribe.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
that's
It doesn't really work that way in Western culture, but it could.
Yeah,
it could.
I personally think that some of these you know, practices may seem to be just so far out, you know, for our Western culture, like communicating with the spirit or making altar for the baby, you know, but you know, or just getting ready for the conception or singing the song even before the child comes, you know, they may seem just so far out, maybe too spiritual or not scientifically proven, whatever, you know, but on, you know, like the common sense, even just the common sense, it just make sense, you know, we just want to or just to creating the field, the welcoming, loving field for a new life to come. It's beautiful, you know, and I see that sometimes these practices may be a little bit overlooked in the process of conception, you know, that may be a little bit not
they're completely overlooked, except by a very few number of people. You know, a lot of things don't make scientific sense. Like, why do we sing a song on someone's birthday and have them blow out candles?
Yeah.
You know, I think blowing out candles shows that you're strong and healthy enough to be able to blow out candles. In my country, why do we have a big fat guy dress up in a red suit and go down a chimney at Christmas time? Like, it's physically impossible for a fat person to go down a chimney. And yet all kinds of people perpetuate this every year at a holiday. And you know, there's all kinds of things we do without thinking about it that are really kind of bizarre. But fun, and so we keep doing them. So why not welcome a baby? I mean, anytime we go into a new place, our social emotional nervous system, so I'll get a little scientific now, right? Social emotional nervous system is scanning the room to see if we know somebody, and if we don't know someone, where's the friendly person? Where's the person who might smile at us or invite us to come sit at their table if we're all alone? Might just start a conversation with us. Where are those people? We're always looking because we want to feel welcomed, comfortable in a new place. And if you don't get those, you know, you leave. So, um, yeah, it just makes sense.
It's like a deep inside, we all want to feel, I believe that we all want to feel welcome and, you know, like the sense of belonging and that we are, it's right that we are here and that we are welcomed, you know, and exactly like how massive imprint it can cause in a, you know, our lives if we don't feel welcome, you know, yeah, if we don't feel welcome even already in the process of conception or a pregnancy, you know. So these practices and all the prenatal bonding has such a, or I believe it has such a big effect on, you know, our future development and lives.
Yeah, it does, because if you are, let's say some spirit decided to come into conception, but so maybe that's their karmic choice, if you believe in karma.
Mm.
But their anxiety, um, leftover womb trauma that's in the cells of the womb. And so this is where I consider the womb as a garden. And I know that you and I have talked about that in the past, and we share that in common.
Yeah.
And every garden has to be weeded for health. I actually just did some weeding this morning, and it felt so good to take away the things that died a while ago and were clogging up the space and starting to look kind of ratty and soggy and just not good. And now the rest of my garden has more sunlight,
Yeah.
more things grow that are going to continue to grow in the summer. And the womb holds things because it's a very sensitive organ.
Yeah.
Just the way we don't see our heart, but we feel our heart all the time. We know the heart isn't just about pumping blood and beating. We have sayings like, my heart is bursting with joy.
Yeah.
My heart is broken.
Yeah.
I have a heartache.
Mm.
Similarly, we do that with the stomach. I have butterflies in my stomach, which means you're anxious.
Yeah.
I have a gut feeling about this. These are all very low brain instinctual responses that have to do with us being mammals, number one. And the womb, you know, as people with wombs, we mostly feel that place when we're menstruating or ovulating.
Mm-hmm.
Some people get ovulation pain. Certainly, there's plenty of people that have menstrual pains. And I don't know if it was like this in your country, but when I was growing up, some people called their monthly cycle the curse.
Yeah, yeah, we have a different names for it, but yeah, none of them is really,
A really negative
yeah,
connotation.
yeah,
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 you can feel that way if you're getting a lot of pain. I understand that. It's like not the best time. Like, in fact, I had so many menstrual cramps when I was younger that when I got married, I planned the wedding around my cycle
yeah,
because I didn't want to.
yeah,
I want it to be when I was bleeding because I might pass out or just
yeah,
be incapacitated. Um, but you know, other than that, we don't really check in with our womb,
mm,
and yet it holds things, and those things can become kind of like weeds, choking the positive growth and energy that could happen in there if you want
yeah,
to conceive.
yeah,
So clearing things, like if you thought you wanted to conceive, um, it would be a great time to get support from someone if you had had abortions,
mm-hmm.
miscarriages, sexual abuse. It's a great time to really go and take care of the health
Yeah.
the emotional health and the garden of the womb, so
Yeah.
that you're weeding it, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
easy, it's not fun, but once it's done,
Exactly. The process itself, it's not like walking, like in the roses garden. It can
well,
be quite, you know,
let's not
um,
forget there's thorns on roses.
yeah, exactly, exactly,
Yeah, you don't get the rose
exactly.
without the thorn.
Yeah, yeah, but I really, from my own experience, and now when I look back, I'm just so happy that I started this path, working with the womb. And as I see like a bigger and bigger and bigger picture of this work, and the ripple effect of this work, like if I compare how, let's say, challenging it was to what it brought into my life, it's much, much bigger than, some confrontations, fears, yeah, like seeing what
Yeah.
actually I'm holding inside, and exactly like we have this space inside of us, and it will be there until we or someone else choose to, take it off. But it's anyway, the energetics will be still there, we still hold it, so why not to take care of it? Like why not to really make it a beautiful place? Because I remember when I started my own like a womb journey, my womb was a place where I didn't want to go. I was like, I'm not going there. Like I like don't even, I'm like, it was just so unwelcoming and sad and cold, and like really a place that I didn't want to go. And I was avoiding this work for some time until I just had this click, like, hey Susie, this is inside you, so there are two choices. You can be avoiding that and be with the pain that you feel internally, or you just start the path and exactly take care of your internal garden and make it blossom again, because the fact that no one taught me before how to take care of the womb doesn't mean that nowadays there are not people who share this wisdom, and yeah, it's great, it's great to, yeah, do some internal gardenings. Yeah.
Yeah, there's another oh, here's this picture. This relates to this. I love this picture.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
So
It's a little hard, no?
yeah, in
Yeah.
Chinese medicine, the uterus is called the little heart.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an energy center that connects the heart that's pumping blood up in our chest
Yeah.
to the heart of the womb. So I don't know how it happens in males, but in females, there's that energy center, and it has a name. And so whatever is going on in the mother's heart up here is affecting the heart down there also.
Yeah.
So when we go back to those metaphors of like, I have a broken heart,
Mm.
uh, that could, let's say well, because you just referenced yourself and you said it was dark and, it was not a place you wanted to go.
Yeah.
Say that your womb heart
Yeah.
was affected.
Yeah.
I'm quite certain that the heart up here had been affected too.
Yeah.
You can't have one with the other, without
Yeah.
the other. And then there's a connection between the heart and the brain also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, it just goes on and on. It's amazing. So, yeah, I mean, we could talk about so many things that related to conception.
Mm.
I'm going to have another picture from here. I don't know if you can see these very well,
Ah,
but
yeah. Yeah, there are these, like I see that there are some like a trees, right? Some little
Mhm.
altars. Yeah.
So these are images. We were doing like um, sand tray therapy, but without sand.
Mm-hmm.
Doing tray work. The person who made this gave me permission to use these images, which I'm very grateful for. And this heart up here, the pink one, is actually broken.
Okay.
And then there's two little hearts and the word healing in here. This person had a stillbirth at 39 weeks gestation. And her heart and her womb heart were both quite broken from this, as was her husband's. And interestingly, 6 months after the baby, she had to give birth to a dead baby. And she had contacted me because she knew me already from working with her first child, who was 4. And she was looking for support groups and things. 6 months later, she and her husband conceived twins. And my instant gut feeling was that the one that died had forgotten her twin sister and went back to get her. Or maybe she had been pregnant with twins and the twin died in that original pregnancy, and for some reason this other child really needed to be there too. So she was so frozen in fear, the mother, from this experience, that she could not do any prenatal connection bonding with the twins she was carrying. Sorry for all the coughing. And she knew that wasn't right. She knew she needed help. And we ended up doing quite a bit of body work to just, try to do some womb healing, but also communicate with the baby that had passed away. Just, see if that baby had something to tell the mother. And eventually make peace with the death so that she could start to welcome the twins and start to tune into them. And they usually showed up in 3 colors. The one that died was always purple, and then there was orange and green, occasionally blue. So I'll go back to this picture. This is after working with her about maybe 10 or 15 times. Every time we worked together, she would make a picture of objects on the tray. She had chose the angel card healing. She didn't do that on purpose. That's what came to her. And so she decided to pair that with the broken, the baby that died, but be welcoming the 2 new souls, right? And then this is a blown up picture of what's over here.
Okay. Now I see.
And this is her with her 4-year-old. And then there's 2 little plastic dolls that are the twins coming in, a candle with an angel for the baby that died, and a tree of life. And and down here where the new babies are coming in, it says blessings and birth, another card she just happened to pick. And it was a process to really help heal her womb and communicate with all the souls that had been in there. But by the time she gave birth, she was so connected to those new babies, and ironically, their birth time included the death day of the one that died, and Mom really didn't want them to be born on that day. She wanted that day to be special, which I totally understand. by the end, she was so big, and it was January or February. She's like, I don't care when they come. They can come whenever they want. Like she had just relinquished all of her holding
Yeah.
to be able to welcome them.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for sharing this story. And yeah, it exactly shows like how this whole process is so individual for each person that goes through a conception and pregnancy, and all this journey can be just so individual, you know. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. There was another mom I worked with where she was pregnant, I think for the fourth time. She had a 3-year-old who was extremely clingy, and she was very concerned about how she was going to be able to take care of a new baby with such a needy toddler. And she'd had a very difficult birth with a toddler. So she came to me to do the birth trauma healing from that. But of course, what came up was she had 2 abortions she had never told me about. Those were the
Mm,
pregnancies. And her womb needed to be weeded while she was pregnant with this
yeah.
4th pregnancy. It needed to be weeded from the abortions that there had been no resolution from. And it needed to be weeded, so to speak, from, or cleared from the traumatic birth she had had with her toddler. And, just within a week, she said, oh my goodness, my toddler is willing to go play in another room by himself now, which was a really big step.
Yeah.
And she had a much easier connected birth with the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And just this one session cleared up so many things,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
many things. And that's where I was like, oh gosh, if I had just known before she conceived the
Mm,
first time, maybe she wouldn't have had such a traumatic birth.
yeah.
That's quite possible because the womb was holding the abortion experiences. And I'm not saying all abortions need to be healed, but um, I would venture to say 95% of them probably do.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
it's not
definitely.
a reason to not have an abortion. I'm completely pro-choice. I just think everything can be done with mindfulness
Yeah.
and uh, resolution or welcoming in some way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, I really love that you speak about this. Yeah, like the approach that it's I really feel it as a like a missing link, sometimes like the missing piece that not often we think about it, in or let's say, for example, the effect of abortion or the effect of the abuse, or some challenging times we went through, like with our wombs, and how this all can affect our journey with the conception. uh, Last question I would like to ask you, it's quite a big question, which is quite a big question, but I want to ask it anyway. We don't have that much, or we don't have that time that this question would deserve, let's say, but I will ask it anyway. And if you could tell us a little bit about the prenatal bonding, and what is it and how we can actually do it.
Aha.
The how can be like some
Ah,
essentials. if it's if
yeah,
it's too if it's too big question, just choose
no,
whichever
it's
way we
not.
want to speak about it.
It's not. Let's start with the most simple thing that you commonly see people connecting and doing prenatal bonding where they're not even thinking about it.
Yeah,
You often see a pregnant person rubbing their pregnant belly.
yeah,
And Most pregnant people talk to the baby.
Mm-hmm.
Both parents often talk to the baby. Um, and I've met people where they were using a surrogate mother, and the surrogate was strapping on a recording of the parents' voices
Mm.
and saying to the baby, these are your parents, and I will always love you and be part of you. But, these people are going to be your parents raising you, and here they are, and I can't wait to meet you. So there's so many ways people are already connecting in with their baby.
Yeah.
Really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's a little harder these days with so much technology in the world and people's reliance on phone apps. Um, but I ask people whenever I'm with a group of pregnant people, well, what do you call the baby? And they usually have some kind of funny name. Like my last child that I gave birth to was constantly moving in my womb, and I knew this person had to be called Jack because it was like jumping Jack Flash was living inside my body, and it didn't matter if it came out as a boy or a girl. I was going to call this kid Jack. Um, and so I feel like people instinctively are connecting in with their children,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're not, consider doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just consider it. And for fathers, I know I sometimes I hear like they say, oh, my wife's pregnant, and I might, depending on if I'm feeling kind of fiery or not, I might say, well, you're pregnant too. It's your child, isn't it? And they're like, well, yeah. And I was like, well, connect with your baby because you made this baby, she's carrying it, but it's your baby, so you're
Yeah.
pregnant too. And then there are formal practices. There is prenatal bonding BA, which is taught by many people. It was created by Jano Rafai, who is a Hungarian psychiatrist. And
Mm-hmm.
I studied that technique with Gerhard and Anna Schroth in Germany. And it involves a very big intake, really discovering both parents, what their background is. It's really, really phenomenal. Even just the intake, which can take 2 sessions.
Wow.
You learn so much about yourself, and become so conscious. Um, things like, oh gosh, there was one person I worked with. Her mom was a nurse while she was pregnant with her and was a nurse in a hospital during a war.
Mm.
It's a big influence. And it sort of helped her understand some of her imprints. Um, so prenatal bonding BA has a big intake, and usually it's 10 to 12 sessions one-on-one. It's a lovely, lovely practice. Not everybody has the ability to give that much time. Um, it's really only once a week, though. I don't know why they don't.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and then there's another wonderful practice called Pregnancy Dialogues out of Denmark. And the APA organization does
Mm-hmm.
pregnancy dialogue trainings very
Mm-hmm.
frequently and has a support program for people who have become trained. And that's a group where parents get together. Usually the mothers are in one group and then the fathers meet separately. Um, and then you have an instant community also, which is really
Mm-hmm.
nice. These people
Yeah.
usually hang out together after they've given birth. It's really sweet. Um,
Nice.
and there's a lot of other forms of prenatal bonding. APA actually had an entire month-long summit on the topic.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 2 years ago. It was still, there's a lot of different approaches. And then there's, the books showed you. as well as just looking for a couple of other, oh yeah, I have, I think these are all really small books. Voices from the Womb.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
What all spirit babies want their mamas to know. Let's say about this too. Conversations from the womb, communicating with your baby during pregnancy and before conception, right? You see all my tabs in here. And this is one of my newest favorites. It's a bit bigger. She's a midwife. She's a baby spirit medium. She does havening trauma healing work. And this is by a British woman, Alison Shaloe, called Baby Talk to Me. Full of science as well as spiritual information. So you get the combo there. So I hope that answered the question with the time we had.
It did. It did. Well, yeah, I know that like the prenatal bonding, it's as beautiful and as white of pig as a conception itself, and the birth and the pregnancy. You know, it's all big topics, especially with your depth of knowledge and the wisdom that you have. I feel yeah, I feel a little bit guilty that for the last question there was just a bit of time.
That's okay. There are also people who are doing singing in pregnancy. I have a Dutch colleague who does that. Beautiful, beautiful singing, as well as I have a colleague here in the United States who does singing in pregnancy. So that's a whole other form of prenatal bonding.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Ellyne, for sharing with us not just all these amazing stories and your wisdom and the fragments of the work, but also like the techniques and ideas how those who are on their journey for welcoming a new life, how they can create a loving, welcoming, and beautiful space for a new child to arrive. Thank you much. Thank you a lot for your time. And if there is anything, I'm really curious, if there is anything that you would like to invite us, I don't know, in your website, or if you run any course, or, you know, I know that you are giving, I don't know if lectures, but for sure you do like a one-to-one in Czech Republic, but also you teach internationally, right, online, or people can contact you also online, I can imagine. Just give us an idea how we can work with you, or how or where you would like to invite those who are interested in your work.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so I have to be honest, about halfway through the pandemic, of course, we didn't know it was halfway yet, but you know, now we do.
Yeah.
Halfway through the pandemic, I was doing a full schedule online, as most people were working online, at least in my country, and I needed to take a break from so much time on the computer. It wasn't well with for me. And in the midst of that break, my mother had some strokes. She was 94 years old and needed 24/7 care. And I was the daughter that did that. And then there was another family crisis. So we have like 3, 4, or 5 years now where I like really pulled back. I really pulled back either for my own health because of the computer or my family. And I found out that I kind of was ready to not work full time. And I've continued to see people privately. I don't do too many groups anymore in my country, but I'm happy to say that in the Czech Republic, I've been working there since 2009.
Mm.
Really feel blessed. I recently found out that the German side of my family was located so close to the Czech border that now I'm thinking maybe I'm part Czech because I love these people so much, and I connect with them so easily.
Mm.
I can't say I have that experience when I'm in Germany. I do have that experience in Denmark because I'm also Danish.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why, but for some reason I'm connected to the Czech Republic, um, where I do give groups, workshops and trainings, and I see people privately, um, usually in Brno,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes in Rožnov. And I'm always open to working with people online, even though, I just don't work full time online anymore. I don't
Yeah.
care to spend my time that way these days. But um, I'm happy to do sessions online with
Mm.
people, for people who want to conceive, for people who are already pregnant, um, for people who need birth trauma healing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I would even consider doing like a pregnancy dialogues online if people
Mm.
do a group that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Beautiful. So I would link the contact on you or your website in the description of this video so people can
yeah,
reach out.
yep.
Yeah, amazing. Ellyne, thank you once again for your time, for your wisdom, for everything that you shared with us today. And yeah, I feel really grateful that we had this time together here today, and hopefully, it may help. This interview will help to those who will listen to get a bigger idea about the topic of conception and the bonding. Beautiful. Thank you.
I'm very, very grateful to be able to speak about this. Really grateful that you and I connected and sparked in our own way.
Yeah.
We're not having a baby together, different kind of,
Exa- Well, this is the baby. This
but
interview is the
yeah, this is the
baby.
baby.
Yeah.
And as I was listening to you, I was tuning into something that, I think this is both personal and professional. Um, in 2008, I had to have a hysterectomy based on some cancer that was discovered in my womb space. And afterwards, more than anything, what I wanted was somebody to just put their hand on my womb space.
Mm,
And it's amazing how hard it can be to find someone to do that.
yeah.
Uh, because I went to many different kinds of practitioners, and everybody just kind of wanted to manipulate instead of just be.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's very possible that we can do that for ourselves to start to tune in. Um, and I will say that I think it was last summer, I asked my shiatsu practitioner, who I really, really care for, to just do that and she just hold the space there. And she did. I don't even know how long it was, but I'll tell you, I felt the spirits of some of the babies that were in my body and then miscarried. I felt them exit my body like they were little butterflies leaving.
Yeah.
And I had no idea they were still in there.
Mm,
They were not traumatic miscarriages, but they'd somehow still been in there and they were just ready to leave because somebody held space.
yeah.
And I just really recommend that we do that for ourselves or maybe with someone you trust.
Mm,
And it doesn't have to be a big traumatic event. It's just like you can just notice it, like, oh, huh,
yeah.
that was a sensation. So I just wanted to, leave us on a note where we don't always have to rely on other people.
Yeah.
A witness can be very, very helpful, really
Mm,
helpful, but we can do a lot for ourselves if we give
yeah.
ourselves time, you know. little bit of time, maybe a little journal or a drawing afterwards.
Yeah.
It could just be 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Exactly. And this is something that I'm um, really, let's say this is the base of the work that I share is to inspire women to spend the time with their own womb. Not that like I'm the healer and I will heal you, because I'm not in that role at all. You know, it's like the medicine is within you. You just exactly just give it the space, just listen, just let the womb speak. Let her tell you her story, you know. And yeah, a lot of things can happen when we just give a space and we just listen and we just let the things happen. Yeah, in this way. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for dropping this piece of wisdom, the cherry on the top. And thank you so much for your time. Yeah, thank you.
thank you for doing what you do. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you. Ciao.